So the third main reason that I invest over 30% of my family's money in Bitcoin is that I believe that Bitcoin is unique. The technology, the decentralization, and the network effects make Bitcoin unique. Now, why is that important? It's important because Bitcoin has differentiated itself from all other digital assets, cryptocurrencies, and everything else that people naturally lump in together with Bitcoin. People think that things like Ethereum, XRP, Solana, Dogecoin, and all of these other things are equivalent to or even similar to Bitcoin. And there really is no similarity at all. The only similarity, the only commonplace is that it is a digital form of an asset, a digital form of currency. What makes Bitcoin unique and what makes Bitcoin astronomically more valuable than any of these other attempts at creating digital money is that Bitcoin is decentralized. You hear that word thrown around a lot, at least I did for years and years and years. Oh, it's decentralized. Well, that sounds great, but what does it mean? It means that there is no central authority with the ability to create, manipulate, or change Bitcoin. There is no central authority with Bitcoin. So, is there a central authority with the US dollar? Yes. Is there a central authority with gold? No. So you see why people often compare Bitcoin more to gold than they do a type of currency that's out in the world today. Any type of currency that's manipulated and controlled by a central bank. So Bitcoin has no central bank. Bitcoin has no central authority. It is decentralized, which means it is controlled by the network. And the network includes nodes and miners all over the world. Computers that are set up in a network all over the world that every 10 minutes add a block to the blockchain, and you can verify all the way back to the beginning of Bitcoin every transaction that has ever happened and is recorded on the blockchain. And that blockchain is stored and replicated on each and every node and computer that is connected to the network. So you can log onto the internet from anywhere in the world and you can check the history of the blockchain. That's what makes it decentralized. It has no single point of failure or single point of control or single point that would allow for manipulation. It has no big red button that allows you to press it and print more. I won't get into the technology and the mechanics behind how the supply is limited. Suffice it to say for this video that the supply is limited to 21 million based on the protocol. And again, since it's decentralized, no single party, no single person, no single company, no single government in the world can change or alter the protocol. You would have to have a majority to change it, and there would be no benefit to changing it, and so it's not going to change. There are things that have happened in the past called forks, where there have been disagreements over the protocol and whether things should be changed, and what happens is if anybody disagrees, they fork off into their own thing, and that becomes valueless because the main Bitcoin network retains all of the value. And so it is decentralized. There's no single point of failure or control with Bitcoin. Now, I'll mention another word that's very important for this technologically unique asset that is Bitcoin, and that is the network. The network effects are what are causing it to be so exponentially productive and to be adopted so rapidly, and that is increasing exponentially the adoption all over the world. That's because of something called network effects. Now you can see the network effects that add value. Recently, if you see all the big companies that have just gained massive traction, not all, but a lot of the big technology companies that have really grown rapidly since the internet boom, really have benefited from network effects. They have built out networks of users that really create and sustain the value. And that network, as it grows, it creates an incredible moat. So you think about a company like Microsoft that has the Windows ecosystem. Well, because they control such a vast portion of the computing world, they have a moat because their network is so powerful. In the same way, Bitcoin has far outstripped any other digital asset. Bitcoin was not the first attempt at creating digitally scarce money, or a digital way, a permissionless digital way to exchange value. Bitcoin was not the first, but Bitcoin was the first to do it well and to start to be adopted and to gain traction enough such that now many people, myself included, view it as an unstoppable force. Now, could be wrong about that, which is why I don't have 100% of my money in Bitcoin. But I do have a significant portion, over 30%, invested into Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, and things like that. And that's because I believe that Bitcoin offers a unique value proposition due to being decentralized, having a huge and growing network that provides a moat of protection around it. And ultimately, these things are what differentiate it from any other digital currency or digital asset that you might have heard of. So to tell a little history about my journey into Bitcoin, and again, I'm not some early adopter that's made multiple millions of dollars on Bitcoin. My average purchase price, I don't mind sharing that with you, my average purchase price is somewhere in the high $60,000 range. So, my returns are not astronomical like you would have seen with someone buying Bitcoin over the last 10 to 15 years. No. Now, the first time I bought Bitcoin was probably 5 or 6 years ago. This was after, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was after the spike in the aftermath of COVID, when the money printer was turned on, global liquidity went through the roof, and we saw Bitcoin spike up to around $70,000 in value. And everyone was just like, what is going on? And then you see it start to crash back down, and people think it's a bubble. But really, that was just the volatility, the feature of the volatility at work. Now, when it started to go back down, that's when I said, it was at 70, it might go back up to 70. I'm going to start buying some. So I started buying it in the 30s. I opened an account on Coinbase, and I said, well, if I'm going to put a little bit, and I didn't put much money in. This was just kind of thinking I need to put something in there to get some exposure, to get some diversification. So I put about a third of my money into Bitcoin, and then it listed the other top ones. And I said, I've heard of Ethereum. I'm going to put a third in Ethereum. I've heard of Solana. I'm going to put a third in Solana. All of those lost between 50 and 70% of their value. They kept going down. Bitcoin got down into the teens, and I panicked sold near the bottom and lost half my money that I'd put in and said, well, done with that. Not going to buy any more cryptocurrency, not going to buy any more Bitcoin. Won't touch that again. So it took years of learning about Bitcoin as Bitcoin continued to start to grind higher after that. And I started to follow some people with books they've written and podcasts, some economists that I really respect and investors that I really respect, and they're talking about Bitcoin. I'm like, I got to learn a little more about this. So I read a book, The Bitcoin Standard, read another book that just came out recently. This is kind of further along in the journey. I read a book, The Big Print by Larry Lepard, read a book by Lynn Alden, who I've followed for a while, called Broken Money. And these people are all talking about Bitcoin. And so I learned more about it and realized, Bitcoin is totally different than all of these other cryptocurrencies. So as I've started to share a little bit about why I invest in Bitcoin, naturally I'm already getting some comments and questions about, why not XRP? Why not Ethereum? These are just going to perform even better because they're earlier, they're smaller, and they have more upside, because all of these things are going to $100,000 if Bitcoin did, right? Wrong. No, Bitcoin is unique. Bitcoin has the first mover advantage. Bitcoin has the network that is going to provide a moat. It's not that you can't duplicate the technology of Bitcoin, it's that you can't duplicate the network that it's already built. You can't do it at this point. So those are all the reasons why I believe that Bitcoin offers a very unique value proposition, because it's different. It's decentralized. It's built a growing network that is what's giving it exponential growth through exponential adoption. And that's why I believe that it really can't be competed with other forms of digital assets. Even the United States government is making distinctions between Bitcoin and other digital assets. If you listen to the things that are coming out of the executive branch, the administration, they're making a clear distinction between those things, and you need to pay attention to why that might be. So go look into it. Look up the Bitcoin hash rate to see how powerful the computer network is. Look up decentralization of Bitcoin. Read up about it. Ask ChatGPT about it. See what you think, and let me know what you think. Have a good one.